Καλησπέρα σας. Σας
Good evening. Welcome to the 30th anniversary assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, one of the very few institutions seated in Greece and the only interparliamentary organization which is active in promoting the principles, the values of the Orthodox Greek tradition in society. 1993-2023, a journey of 30 years is being completed. I think it's the right time to review the activity of the I.A.O. with references to people and events that have left their footprint. It's a good chance also to design the next plan, the next steps of the organization. I shall call on the podium the Secretary General of the I.A.O, Dr. Maximos Harakopoulos, for a short welcome.
Σεβασμιότατοι, Αγιεκαθηγούμενε,
Your Eminences,
κύριε Αντιπρόεδρε της Βουλής των Ελλήνων,
Speaker of the Hellenic Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, MPs, Regional Deputy Governor, Mayor, dear colleagues, members of the academic community and international organizations honoring us with their presence. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with special pleasure and honor that I welcome you in the official opening ceremony for the 30th Anniversary General Assembly of the I.A.O. For all the participants, it is undoubtedly an event with historical value because it confirms the initial hopes and the visions of those who planned and worked in order to establish an institution uniting and coordinating the Orthodox world. Back then, in 1993, when the Balkans, Central and Eastern Europe were coming out of the times of real socialism, and the peoples were seeking a compass for the future, in parallel displaying the traditions of the past, the solid spiritual roots of Orthodoxy, which had not been interrupted. And of course, just a few decades were not able to extinguish what has grown and flourished for so many centuries as the legacy of the Byzantine civilization. So the I.A.O. has managed in these 3 decades not just to survive as an organization, but to expand, to grow, to get larger, and to gain an international prestige and leave its footprint in major sectors of international politics. And this organization has not just the parliaments of European states represented, where the majority is Orthodox population, but also elected Orthodox members of parliament from countries all over the world. At the same time, it has the pleasure to work with international organizations and very important institutions, some of those being represented here tonight. Dear friends, the works of our anniversary assembly are taking place in the hospitable premises of Porto Karas, Chalkidiki, where the natural beauty is perfectly combined with the history and deep spirituality. It is where Aristotle was born. It is next to Thessaloniki of Cyril and Methodius, and very close to Mount Athos, which is the site of spiritual unity for all Orthodoxy in the world. And this is going to inspire the effectiveness of our work. I'm sure that in these days we will have the chance to discuss thoroughly and fruitfully all the major issues that concern our organization in a particularly difficult circumstance. But I'm sure and optimistic that in a spirit of unity and partnership, we can lay the foundations for an even more successful future journey of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. So once again, welcome.
Some
technical details. Channel 1 is for Greek, Channel 2 for English, Channel 3 for Russian, and then 4 for Arabic and 6 for Serbian.
The Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy is a forum, a space where people's ideas meet. Europe is changing. A great number of European citizens with common historical and cultural heritage wish to express themselves through Orthodox tradition and Christian values in the context of the European Union and democratic institutions. The Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy was established in 1993 upon initiative of the Hellenic Parliament.
Στη δεκαετία του 1990,
In the 1990s, many people, monks and secular alike, coming from those countries, which were then under the Soviet regime and a liberal regime,
έρχονται στην Ελλάδα αναζητώντας επαφή πώς μπορεί αυτός ο κόσμος να ξαναβρει τις ρίζες του.
προέκυψε και ορίμασε.
the idea of a conference, an international conference, emerged and slowly matured. There would be participation of different parliament representatives, universities, different churches.
Τότε λοιπόν είναι που οργανώνουμε στην Ορμίλια, στο γυναικείο μοναστήρι εξάρτημα της Ιεράς Μονής Σίμωνος Πέτρας του Αγίου Όρους, αυτό το συνέδριο με πρωτοβουλία της Βουλής των Ελλήνων, ποια είναι η θέση της Ορθοδοξίας στη νέα ευρωπαϊκή πραγματικότητα.
Members of the Russian Duma cooperated from the very first moment, along with representatives of 25 parliaments and numerous observers.
Από την ίδρυσή της είχε την καταλλαγή, την ειρηνική συνύπαρξη μέσα από την αλληλοκατανόηση λαών, στοχεύει στο διαθρησκειακό και τον διαπολιτισμικό διάλογο.
The I.A.O, as a political body, focuses on social and political issues facing the European continent and the entire planet. It seeks responses consistent with the Orthodox Christian views on love and peace. The I.A.O is being established as an arena for interparliamentary dialogue and global consensus on issues of political and cultural orientation falling within the spectrum of the concept of religion.
Η πραγματικότητα της Ευρώπης είναι ότι ήταν η κοιτίδα των χριστιανικών αξιών.
In I.A.O, we evaluate the moral and cultural values of Christianity as an important condition for the construction of a new Europe.
Ένα από τα ζητήματα που μας απασχολούν εσχάτως είναι ο διάλογος για το μέλλον της Ευρώπης. Ποια θα είναι η ταυτότητα της αυριανής Ευρώπης.
The destruction of monuments and places of worship of the Orthodox Christians as well as of other religions is an act of barbarism.
Διαφωνούμε κάθετα με την εργαλειοποίηση της θρησκείας. Χαρακτηριστικό παράδειγμα είναι η μετατροπή της Αγίας Σοφίας στην Κωνσταντινούπολη από την τουρκική ηγεσία σε τζαμί.
The decision to convert the historic church of Hagia Sophia in Constantinople into a mosque is primarily a political act that offends the essence of both faiths by implicating the worship of God with acts of revenge and war cries, trying without any reason to paraphrase the history of a great geopolitical historical monument and mislead the people into religious bigotry.
Αγία Σοφία αποτελεί έναν κεντρικό συνδετικό κρίκο μεταξύ της Ορθοδοξίας, του Ελληνισμού, των παραδόσεών μας και της παγκόσμιας πολιτιστικής κληρονομιάς.
The Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, I.A.O, presents to the public the volume titled Hagia Sophia, the Churches of the Wisdom of God Around the World. We are filled with great joy because we're given the opportunity to present today, here in London, the volume that has been published by the I.A.O, Hagia Sophia, Churches of the Wisdom of God Around the World.
Η Αγία Σοφία δεν είναι μόνη της. Υπάρχουν άλλοι 37 ναοί. Είναι το παρακολούθημά της, είναι η συνοδεία της, αν θέλετε. Τη συνοδεύουν μέσα στην ιστορία αυτή οι ναοί.
Δεν πρέπει να επιτρέψουμε το δίκαιο της ισχύος να κατισχύσει την ισχύ του δικαίου. Η αλήθεια δεν πρέπει επουδενή να καλυφθεί από το σκότος.
Αν δεχτούμε ότι τα μνημεία λειτουργούν ως αποτύπωμα και χαρακές στη μνήμη, τότε η μνήμη, όπου και να την αγγίξεις, πονεί.
Tribalism and racism are offending vices to mankind, having precipitated some of the darkest tragedies of human history.
We have to defend persecuted Christians all over the world.
The Assembly's permanent seat is in Athens, but travels a lot. Its executive bodies include the General Assembly and its Bureau, the members of the International Secretariat and the Secretary-General, the various thematic committees, all of which are members of national parliaments. With the support of 2 out-of-parliament advisors, they cooperate with international organizations, highlighting the ecumenical and unifying spirit of Orthodoxy in order to safeguard the cultural and religious map of different regions. Orthodox members of parliament from more than 20 countries worldwide belong to this organization that has greatly contributed to the development of international parliamentarism and cultural exchanges among our peoples on the other.
In un mondo in cui la pace si basa sul multipolarismo.
Η συνέλευση έχει συμβάλει πάρα πολύ σε αυτή τη διάχυση των ιδεών. Θέλω να ελπίζω ότι θα συνεχίσετε με την ίδια αποφασιστικότητα και θέληση με την οποία το έχετε κάνει μέχρι τώρα.
Meanwhile, more groups and individual members of parliament joined the I.A.O objectives. Amongst the I.A.O objectives are independent parliamentarism and wider participation of Orthodoxy, to promote solutions on critical problems of contemporary societies and ecological crises. I.A.O encourages interaction among parliamentary, political, ecclesiastical, academic, and spiritual bodies, placing Orthodoxy in the frame of contemporary global dialogue. This cultural and historical encounter acts as a catalyst between Orthodox people and others on earth, leading in peace and prosperity.
Πιστεύω εις έναν Θεό, Πατέρα Παντοκράτορα, Ποιητήν ουρανού και γης, ορατώνται πάντων και αοράτων.
The Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy brings together the principles of the Age of Enlightenment and the empirical tradition of Orthodox theology.
Ορθοδοξία και δημοκρατία εδώ σε εσάς βαδίζουν μαζί.
New technologies and globalization of economy lead the I.A.O. beyond its borders. The Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy is facing the future with confidence, but also with great concern for the destiny and protection of the weak, those that suffer in need of a helping hand. We will carry in the same way in the future, always having in mind that the congregation of the Church is the people of God.
Υπερασπιζόμενοι την έννοια του Θεού, είτε είναι μουσουλμάνοι, είτε είναι ορθόδοξοι χριστιανοί, υπερασπιζόμαστε ένα πλαίσιο ελευθερίας, το οποίο πρέπει να υπάρχει στον κόσμο του αύριο.
The I.A.O. condemns any act of aggression against national independence. We stand with sincere feelings of solidarity and humanity for the Ukrainian people. We appeal on both parties involved to pursue the path of peaceful settlement of disputes leading to a sustainable ceasefire between two peoples with common religious and cultural traditions.
Στα 30 αυτά χρόνια εργαστήκαμε για την ανάδειξη των χριστιανικών αξιών και παραδόσεων στο κοινό μας σπίτι, την Ευρώπη, για την ενότητα του ορθόδοξου κόσμου παρά τις οδυνηρές αντιξοότητες, για την προστασία των διωκόμενων χριστιανών αλλά και των χριστιανικών μνημείων, όπως και τη συνεργασία με άλλους διεθνείς θεσμούς με σκοπό την ειρήνη και την αλληλεγγύη των λαών. Στο χέρι μας είναι τα επόμενα χρόνια η επιτυχημένη πορεία της Διακοινοβουλευτικής Συνέλευσης Ορθοδοξίας να είναι ακόμη πιο δημιουργική και καρποφόρα.
Mr. Athanasios Bouras, Vice Speaker of the Hellenic Parliament, is invited on the podium to declare the opening of this anniversary assembly. Your Eminences, Secretary General of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, Advisor, Deputy Regional Governor, Mayor, Police Chief, representatives of the academia, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, members of parliaments, ladies and gentlemen, I am conveying the warm greetings and the wishes for every success from the Speaker of the Hellenic Parliament, Mr. Konstantinos Tasoulas. As it is well known, it is in the Hellenic Parliament that the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy has its seat and administrative support. So the Greek Parliament is extremely pleased to be taking part in the anniversary 30th General Assembly of the I.A.O. and addresses warm greetings to all participants. Our satisfaction is even higher because once again we have the chance to confirm that the initiative taken by the Greek Parliament in 1992 was both essential and extremely successful. That was the initiative from the Greek Parliament to start a project of connecting all parliaments, all churches, and all Orthodox schools of theology of the so-called Orthodox countries. And the outcome of that initiative was in June 1993, when in the Monastery of Ormilia in Chalkidiki, the female monastery hosted the works of the first General Assembly. The participation of the Holy Monastery of Simonos Petras has been decisive. And then in 1994, the Greek Parliament suggested the establishment of an entity in Athens, and this is how the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy was born. So the Parliament has responded to the request of the Orthodox Christians, and Greece has also responded to this request and has taken the historical responsibility and initiative. And please allow me to mention the names, although you saw the people on the video, but please allow me to mention the names of the then prime ministers and speakers of the parliament. Konstantinos Mitsotakis, Athanasios Bouras, Andreas Papandreou, Apostolos Kaklamanis, and furthermore, a leading role was played by the then chairman of the Committee on Orthodoxy and Religions, the late Vasilis Korahais, and also the first Secretary General, Orestis Papastratis, but also Stelios Papathemelis. In this effort, and later on in the 30-year journey of the organization, all parties of the Hellenic Parliament have contributed. All political forces of the country have contributed. They were all present in Ormilia, and they have all supported this effort. I had the honor and the pleasure as member of the Greek Parliament to serve. I saw myself in the video and also in the pictures, because I had the honor to serve from different posts of responsibility and be taking part in this organization as a member of the Greek delegation. So allow me to point out the following. The I.A.O. has been announcing, proclaiming, and protecting its political and parliamentary character. It was established as a political organization, and it remains a political organization, and will always remain as such, going deeper into matters of values, politics, and culture through partnerships. And in the first years, it had an educational role, training people and shaping the new parliamentary customs of those times. Because do not forget that back then, in 1993, our country was the only member of the United Europe, the only member country out of the Orthodox countries. So in these 30 years, the I.A.O. has avoided the risk of being involved in any sort of inter-Orthodox church or interreligious confrontations, and has always been contributing in conciliation and mutual understanding. It has also avoided the risk of formulating positions and taking initiatives affiliated with political parties or state interests of the member countries. And this attitude maintained by the organization throughout the years is making this entity a most reliable interlocutor for other interparliamentary institutions and churches or other religious organizations. The views and opinions of the I.A.O. were confirmed recently as the Interparliamentary Union, the IPU, organized recently a conference in partnership with the I.A.O. in Marrakesh, Morocco, with the subject Interparliamentary Parliamentary Conference on Interreligious Dialogue. And the I.A.O. has taken part in this conference and has also presented reports. And all of us, all members of parliament and all parliaments have also contributed to the management of extremely difficult conditions that the world has been facing. Economic crisis, ongoing and deep crises that affect the vulnerable social classes, the COVID-19 pandemic, the refugee crisis, the crisis in the US, the war in Ukraine, and so many others. So obviously, democracy is called to design and develop a resistance against its enemies. And also to confront the views promoted into the social fabric in the name of freedom, which actually involve a future without values, without the values that are part of the people's tradition. And I would like to refer to the initiative taken in Istanbul when the Church of Hagia Sophia was turned into a mosque. And I would also like to refer to the very weak resistance on the part of governments and international organizations. So in the context of globalized information, the knowledge of citizens, especially young people, on key topics such as the monumental wealth of the mankind is being limited, and people cannot even recognize monuments of civilization and the value of monuments. And such an ignorance leaves monuments unprotected against many risks and hazards in critical times for the mankind, where monuments are being destroyed or their use becomes a part of political interests. However, we as a society and as politicians, we have the duty to defend those monuments. So we need to congratulate the organization, the I.A.O., because it has assumed on its shoulders and has fulfilled the mission of publishing the volume Hagia Sophia, the Churches of the Wisdom of God throughout the world, in 12 languages, so that this case of sacrilege against the Church can reach every citizen in the world. I hope I have not tired you with these thoughts, and allow me to officially open the 30th anniversary General Assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. And let me wish every success to the works of the Assembly. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ για την προσοχή σας.
The floor to Mrs. Katerini Zographou, Vice Governor of Chalkidiki. Eminences, Your Beatitude, Fathers, Members of Parliaments, distinguished members and participants in the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. Welcome to Chalkidiki. Chalkidiki encloses the castle of Orthodoxy, Mount Athos. The goals of the I.A.O. always remember of actuality. Even in our days, when we need to preserve the values of the Orthodox value system, the maintaining of family ties and parliamentarism, our cultural heritage, and the diffusion of Orthodox love as a prevention of different crises on all levels, conveying the best wishes of our regional government, Mr. Apostolos Tzitsikostas. I wish to convey to you our best wishes for your very productive meeting and the wish for you to continue as a bridge of peace, conciliation between the Orthodox and non-Orthodox peoples of this earth. Andreas, His Eminence Varkalonchori Vianu, in order to read out the address of His All Holiness, the Orthodox Patriarch Bartholomew. Dear Vice President of the Hellenic Parliament, I'm very glad to see you again. We have met many times. The last time we completed the old age home of our diocese. Representative of His Eminence Archbishop of Athens in Greece, Mr. Ieronymos, representative of His Beatitude Patriarch of Alexandria and all Africa, Abbot of the Simonos Petra Monastery, mayors, Dean of the School of Theology, dear colleagues, dear members of Parliament, fathers and brothers, ladies and gentlemen, I want to convey the blessings, the wishes, and the love and affection and appreciation of His All Holiness, the Patriarch Bartholomew. We all know his concern and his practice in concern with regard to matters like the ones that we are delving in here. So you have his best wishes, and I would like to express some thoughts on the occasion of this 30th anniversary of the I.A.O. The transformation and transition are the main features of the historical changes from city states. We transitioned to great empires of Rome and Constantinople and of Alexander the Great, and then these states transition from theocentricity to a state-centered world, and then the flag of the European Union was placed next to our national flags, and of course we all wonder what is the next step for all of us, because we have been going through times and the role of Alexander the Great, the King of Macedonia, was very important for us to be able to continue, and Socrates actually took over and fostered this position of Alexander the Great and the position and views of Demosthenes. However, how are we going to face major issues in Europe, like pauperization in the EU with all its dreadful consequences? What about the climate change? The specialists say that there are going to be terrible risks from climate change, and then the slave trade of refugees and migrants. Those who survive are piled up in places that they arrive, and they wait. The people, young people, the flock of the church is reduced, and many young people believe in the existence of God. The European Union continues to transition towards multiculturalism and interculturalism with 24 million of Muslims, with a Muslim mayor in London. The barbarians of Cavafis are always of actuality, from the fall of Rome in 476 BC to the fall of Constantinople in 1453. So in this transforming 21st century, can we still be discussing whether the Muslims, Jews, Orthodox, can we still discuss and wonder if they have the right to bear openly and publicly the ensigns of their religion, the symbols of their religion? And in fact, in the 21st century, the Orthodox faith is used for political ends. In Christianity and in Orthodox Church, the triune world does not correspond to this ever-changing world. We have it is like a vessel, the content of which remains there and forever changing. Dostoevsky, in his book of the Great Inquisitor, probably refers to his country, Russia. And we feel the change in the Ukrainian war, where thousands of people perish. Everything is in upheaval, and the Ecumenical Patriarch, before conceding the autocephaly to the Ukraine, invited the primate of the Ukraine, Onufrios, and if the primate had accepted this invitation, things would have been totally different in Ukraine today. The unity of the Orthodox world and in Constantinopolis, they commemorate Cyril of Moscow. In fact, it is our heart that needs to transform in humility and love. And I will read out an excerpt of His All Holiness's letter in 2021 in Crete towards I.A.O. He wrote then that this illness hits the poorer strata, and not only the poorer in third world countries. It hits all countries, and the countries that have an abundance of medications and means and vaccines need to succor the other countries, the weaker ones, the poorer ones, and help them. You are called here, dear representatives of your respective parliaments, to deposit here your speech, a word, a spirit that is that of love and hope. We who believe in the Son of God and Redeemer of the world, we are invited to proclaim that He has the last word. He who is the life and resurrection and expresses the love of God for man. With these thoughts, please let me convey the blessings and love of His All Holiness, the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew.
The message of his Beatitude, the Metropolitan of Athens and all Greece, will be read out by His Eminence, Metropolitan of Cassandria, Nicodemus. Your Eminence, Metropolitan of Archalochori, Andrew, representative of our Ecumenical Patriarch, Your Eminence, Metropolitan of Zambia, representative of the Patriarch of Alexandria, Most Reverend Abbot, Fathers and Brothers in Christ, Honorable Vice Speaker of the Greek Parliament, Honorable Secretary General of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, honorable speakers, ladies and gentlemen participating in this anniversary General Assembly, it is with great pleasure that I am addressing the special 30th anniversary General Assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. My wholehearted wishes and my paternal blessings for every success to the works of your conference. The topic that will be addressed by your General Assembly is extremely interesting. 30 years of Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy against the new challenges, facing new challenges before new perspectives. And the special thematic session is expected to be very interesting about the role of Christian values in Europe and the world, as well as the relevant lectures, speeches by the participants to this assembly. The expectations of the society from this assembly are major because we are all concerned with the new challenges and the new prospects which appear very fast in people's lives. The changes in our customs and morals shake the construct of our life, and especially Christian values that have to do with humane feelings, love, compassion, conciliation, solidarity, faith in the Son of God who was crucified and resurrected, the Christian tradition as an evangelical and an ecclesiastic way of living and way of viewing reality. So those and many others, what is their role in our intercultural home country in Europe and the world? These are key questions that concern the consciousness and the mind of every thinking person, and will also be addressed by your assembly, so that we can reflect and gain more experience and more maturity and more diligence in handling such issues. It is true that the Orthodox tradition, despite the unavoidable human weaknesses, is the uniting power and the component of common pursuits, because the pan-human wish for peace, for equality, freedom, those are all proclaimed in the Gospel of God as a divine imperative and as an expression of God's will. So the desirable is to have people become partners of God in this work, and the Gospel to become the supreme criterion of human consciousness in order to transform the daily life of people and interpersonal relations. So to close this short and simple reflection, I would like to wish once again every success to the works of this anniversary General Assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, and I would also like to congratulate its distinguished Secretary General, Mr. Maximos Harakopoulos, for the successful organization and his overall contribution in the developments in our country, in Europe, but also in countries all over the world. May God bless you and may give you his enlightenment and strength. With my blessings, Ieronymos, President of the Holy Synod of the Church of Greece.
Παρακαλώ να ανέβει στο βήμα όσο περνάει.
Eminence of Zambia and Mozambique, John, in order to read out the message of his Beatitude, Patriarch of Alexandria and all Africa. Representative of His Holiness, Eminence of Arkalοχώρη, representative of the Archbishop of Athens and Greece, MPs, brothers and sisters, members of the 30th General Assembly of the I.A.O, may the grace and mercy of God be with you. We greet and bless the works of the 30th Anniversary General Assembly of the I.A.O, which throughout these 30 years of its existence and operation has always been the carrier of a very fertile thinking process and of important initiatives that pertain to Orthodoxy, and it actually also participated, contributed to the spiritual life of millions of people in the European continent. Unfortunately, in nowadays, there are many voices that wish for a Europe where Christian elements will be expelled from the public sphere. Of course, the Orthodox tradition, with its own huge wealth and ancient roots, holds a very important position in the European space, and it would be wrong to ignore its role and its contribution to the modern European developments. Orthodoxy today develops a new dynamic in all the world, especially in the space of pastoral responsibility of the Patriarchate of Alexandria in suffering Africa. And we follow very closely the actions of I.A.O through His Eminence Metropolitan of Zambia, John, who is the link between us and the Pan-African Parliament. From the see of our ancient patriarchate, the great city of Alexandria that had so much to offer to humanity, we bless and congratulate the members of the I.A.O for their work. And like a father, we want to urge you all to continue working with the same enthusiasm and zeal for the holy purpose, the sacred purpose that you have and duty you have undertaken. And I wish you all success at the works of your 30th Anniversary General Assembly of the I.A.O. With my paternal blessings, Theodore. Mr. Elissaios, now the greeting address by the Very Reverend Archimandrite Elissaios, Abbot of the Holy Monastery of Simonos, Petras.
Your Eminences, Vice Speaker of the Greek Parliament, Secretary General, my dear friends and brothers, it is with pleasure and with real interest, we are attending the anniversary 30th General Assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. Our presence here is meaningful, or rather has the purpose of recalling the beginning and the symbolism of the assembly held by the members of the parliament in Panagia in Philanthropini Center, today's Ormilia Monastery, in June 1993, so 30 years ago. And that meeting was the foundation for the founding act of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. And the second goal of our presence is to honor the memory of a Seraphian who used to be the abbot of Holy Virgin Monastery and the president of Ormilia Foundation, who practically contributed with the assistance of the nuns and has encouraged, both in theory and in practice, the idea of establishing the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. And as we see on the left, the logo of the I.A.O. is a work of the nuns of that holy monastery. A loyal servant of monasticism was designing in the context of his quality as a monk on Mount Athos, and together with the advisor to the assembly, Mr. Migdalis, because they had a long friendship and common goals. So they were designing together an orthodoxy, a living orthodoxy, that waters the tree of Christianity and can encourage future developments in the Balkans and in Europe. Orthodoxy, despite its radical character, is not a fundamentalistic religion, because it is present here, but it goes beyond the present. It is not avoiding the absolute. It is not avoiding Christian truth and idolization of Christianity. The interpreters apologize. The Holy Reverend Abbot is reading a very, very difficult text with which text has not been given to the interpreters. So we are doing our best. This spirit, of course, with some exceptions, is characterizing the life on Mount Athos, which is a monastic city and Orthodox civilization. It is enrichment of the Mount Athos legacy. Orthodox multinationality and polyphony create respect, confidence, mutuality in the views and actions, and participation in the common affairs. The monks view Mount Athos as their home country. They are united in exile, and they view Orthodox brothers as brothers. And this year, the primate of Mount Athos is held by the Serb monk of the holy monastery of Hilandarion. So I have the sense that based on the declaration of the I.A.O., where the role of orthodoxy is considered important, the key goals and wishes of everyone correspond, because we all wish to contribute, all Orthodox members wish to contribute in building peace and justice in Europe, both the East and the West. In other words, in the revelation of a more real life and the evangelical announcement of having the bright light in front of people to glorify God in heaven. So you always have a fruitful dialogue in your meetings and also in your writings, which is an example, a model of a constructive and fruitful dialogue among Orthodox churches, monastic centers, and other denominations. With these few thoughts, my brothers and sisters, allow me to greet the anniversary of the 30-year journey of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, and let me add the wish that you go on giving examples and modeling cooperation, unity, communication, conciliation, solidarity among the Orthodox, but not only among the Orthodox. May you continue seeking solutions in the wealth of the Orthodox tradition and inspiration for the contemporary pressing problems in order to preserve the value of humans and peace and coexistence and quality of life in the present and hope for the future. So I wish you strength and success for the works of this meeting, and may Virgin Mary be your supporter.
And now the representative of the Secretary General of the World Council of Churches, Dr. Audeh Kawash from Jordan, an old friend.
Honorable dignitaries, Madam Deputy Governor, Mr. Vice President of the Hellenic Parliament, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, before I begin, I wish to convey a very warm greeting from the Patriarch of the Holy City of Jerusalem and of all Palestine, Israel, of Syria, beyond the Jordan River, Cana of Galilee, and Mount Zion, Theophilus III. I should deliver my speech in Greek, but I am not speaking on my behalf. I am representing the Secretary General of the World Council of Churches. We are a strong Orthodox presence so that we do not deviate to a path that does not have Orthodoxy as its faith.
Mr. President Sergei Gargiov, Mr. General Secretary Dr. Maximus Charakopoulos, all the participants in this 30th anniversary gathering of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, both members and cooperating parliamentarians and organizations. I greet you on behalf of the 352 member churches of the World Council of Churches, and I thank you for your invitation to send our encouragement for your important meeting. The Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy serves as a vital platform for fostering unity and collaboration among parliamentarians who share a common commitment to the principles and values of the Orthodox faith. Through your collective efforts, you contribute to the preservation and advancements of the rich spiritual, cultural, and historical heritage that Orthodoxy represents. We appreciate the initiatives and endeavors of the Assembly in addressing critical issues that affect Orthodox communities and the world, such as religious freedom, interfaith dialogue, protection of culture, heritage, and social welfare. Indeed, your return to Chalkidiki, Greece, signals the auspicious timing of your anniversary assembly, 30 years after the I.A.O's founding, right after the Cold War. You are rightly gathered there again to reflect on the new challenges facing Europe and the world and to deliberate on the new perspectives necessary to meet them. Through the lens of your shared Orthodox traditions as members of the I.A.O, you possess a unique opportunity to shape legislation and policies that reflect the timeless values of our Christian faith. Your commitment to justice, equity, morality, and ethical governance is a testament to the teachings of Orthodoxy, and it serves as a reminder of the transformative power that can be achieved through collective action and cooperation, and as a beacon of hope and inspiration for all. Many of today's steepest challenges stem from the war in Ukraine. I am confident that in light of this war, the first in Europe since World War II, that your quest will be to articulate what the I.A.O and its parliamentary members can offer to halt the violence, mend inter-Orthodox tensions, and encourage peace in the region. On that basis, you can continue to propose key Christian values and practices that can inform Orthodox participation in the democratic future of Europe and beyond. Moreover, your cooperative agreements allow you now to extend your mission beyond Europe to encompass other regions and religions. These are tense and troubling times of Orthodox Christians, but with its global network of parliamentary associations, the I.A.O is in a unique position to advance the cause of peace across the world, most urgently in Europe, but wherever your extensive network of cooperation bodies lead you. Your continuous dedication to these causes strengthens the bonds between nations and fosters a climate of understanding and respect among diverse communities. In all these venues, at stake is not just inter-Orthodox amity, precious thought, that be, but also preciously what Orthodox statespersons, civil servants, churches, clergy and theologians, and lay people can do to the nature of the dialogue, offer humanitarian aid where needed, and ensure regional peace and democratic governance. That is, of course, your founding purpose and the ultimate test of I.A.O's efficiency in Europe's and the world's future. You know that it was Orthodox initiatives that launched the international ecumenical movement a century ago and gave it institutional expression. And today, the WCC includes almost all Orthodox churches and communions in its fellowship. We in the WCC pledge our cooperation in your quest for peace and your effort to bring Christian values to the European future and beyond, what values more closely reflect the gospel than healing and peacemaking. My friends and fellow disciples of Christ, much depends on your reflections and discussions in Chalkidiki. As we move forward together, let us continue to work hand in hand, upholding the principles of our Christian faith and striving for a more just, peaceful, and harmonious world. In this spirit, I extend our ecumenical prayers and hopes for your deliberations and decisions there. May the Spirit of God guide you in the interests of peace. Yours in Christ, Reverend Professor Dr. Jerry Bilay, the General Secretary, World Council of Churches. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ.
Mrs. Kiparisis Demblas, Mayor of Sithonia, has the floor.
I hope I will do okay with the protocol. If I make some mistake, let me express my apologies. The representative of His Holiness, Ecumenical Patriarch Metropolitan Andrew, Your Eminence, Metropolitan of Cassandria, Nicodemus, representative of His Beatitude, Archbishop of Athens and all Greece, Your Eminence, Metropolitan of Zambia, representative of His Holiness, Patriarch of Alexandria, Most Reverend Abbot of the Holy Monastery of Simonos, Petra, Honorable Vice Speaker of the Greek Parliament, Honorable Secretary General of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, ladies and gentlemen, members of Parliament, Honorable Vice Regional Governor, Police Chief, honorable members of the academia, representatives of entities and movements, Reverend Fathers, ladies and gentlemen participating in the General Assembly of the I.A.O. Dear friends, it is a great pleasure and honor for me, both personally and institutionally, as the Mayor of Sithonia, to be receiving in our blessed place and be addressing the participants of the 30th Anniversary General Assembly of the I.A.O. The objectives of the I.A.O., such as developing the Orthodox Christian tradition, promoting the role of Orthodoxy in addressing the contemporary problems, contributing in the dialogue on human rights and peaceful coexistence among peoples. These are all objectives that need to be supported by all thinking and civilized people. And I should say that after so many excellent speakers, after all those nice speeches, I would have nothing more to add. Therefore, I would like just to address the participants to this General Assembly and wish every success to your works. So once again, welcome to Sithonia. And now we shall have an address, greeting address by the Dean of the School of Theology of the Aristotle University, Mr. Chrysostomos Stamoulis.
Σεβασμιότατε εκπρόσωπε του Παναγιωτάτου,
Your Eminence, representing your All Holiness, His All Holiness, our Ecumenical Patriarch, Your Eminence, representative of His Beatitude, the Archbishop of Athens, Metropolitan of Cassandria, Nicodemus, Your Eminence, representative of His Holiness the Patriarch of Alexandria, His Beatitude of Alexandria, Metropolitan John, Very Reverend Abbot, Mr. Vice President, Secretary General, Mr. Charakopoulos, Advisor, Deputy Regional Governor, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, members of Parliament, colleagues, participants to this conference, it's a great pleasure being among you tonight, representing the School of Theology of Thessaloniki, which is the leading, if you allow me, the leading School of Theology worldwide, according to the latest ranking of the QR assessment. So, in times of extended fundamentalism and tough fanaticism and practices and activities and moves and tensions as those actions and moves such as those promoted by the I.A.O. Are an oasis and a hope in a world where religious phenomenon will be the link that holds together the societies. And we have to say that this is the purpose of religious communities. This is the desirable direction. Of course, often they are used by people in the context of instrumentalization, people trying to divide and oppress, spiritually oppress the world. The partnership between the School of Theology of Thessaloniki and the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy has been quite solid for a few years. We have always been standing by their side, and they have always been supporting us. They are our own people, people working hard 24/7 to fulfill this dream, this vision. And those are people who are affiliated with the School of Theology of Thessaloniki, but other schools of theology too, both in Greece and abroad. We have worked together on many different projects and programs. For example, the program for formulating proposals on the European identity, or participation in research programs of the EU, such as European identity, state, welfare, religion, or in our effort to highlight the social and political dimension of the concept of otherness and elaborate proposals such as material program for training for specialized executives in the approach of problems of international communication in the field of local communities. So this was in the past. But the present is giving us new momentum and new ideas. A couple of weeks ago, a new collaboration was approved by our school, and we are proceeding to a joint organization of a conference end October in Thessaloniki for the 30th anniversary of the I.A.O. Because we have to support this effort. We cannot do otherwise. And it is our duty to work with the I.A.O. And this is our duty to the world, because I think people expect a different religious phenomenon. People expect a different orthodoxy. And let me repeat that, because in the public space where we all exist and we all work, sometimes mean people appear who injure the common body of our culture. They injure our dreams, our children, and our concerns. So from the depth of my heart, I wish, and I'm talking on behalf of the entire staff of the School of Theology of Thessaloniki, so let me wish that everything goes smoothly, and may God bless us all. Thank you. The greeting address by the President of the IPU will be read out by Ms. Sara Markiewicz.
Eminences, Excellencies, Honourable Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. It is my distinct honour to be here with you today and to deliver a greeting on behalf of the leadership of the Interparliamentary Union from our President, Mr. Duarte Pacheco, and our Secretary General, Mr. Martin Chungong. Please accept the sincere appreciation of the IPU for extending an invitation to us to participate in the 30th Anniversary General Assembly of the I.A.O. It is a delight to address you on the eve of the International Day of Parliamentarianism, established by the UN General Assembly in 2018 to commemorate the founding of the IPU in 1889. The I.A.O. was born just over a century later, in 1993. The Interparliamentary Union started with a first meeting of members of 9 parliaments and has expanded into a global organization with 179 national parliaments as members. We are proud to count parliamentary organizations such as the I.A.O. as among our permanent observers and to have an observer status at the I.A.O. The IPU and the I.A.O. have many complementary interests and functions. We are both conveners. The IPU brings together national parliaments and relies on the tools of parliamentary dialogue and diplomacy to work towards more peaceful and democratic societies with strong institutions and values. Our motto, for democracy for everyone. The IPU further stands for and defends human rights, especially gender equality, the rights of minorities and vulnerable or marginalized people. The I.A.O. too is a bridge builder. While its members are parliaments of countries with a Christian Orthodox community, it identifies an ecumenical and unifying spirit of the Orthodox tradition. We both share the importance of a multi-stakeholder approach. The I.A.O. has articulated this since its founding, encouraging contact between different stakeholders to contribute to a global dialogue on human rights and peaceful coexistence. The IPU's current strategy encourages parliaments to understand themselves as part of broader ecosystems for democracy. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we both acknowledge the important role of religion or belief in the lives of many people. They influence their identity, values, and decision-making processes. They can affect how people participate in society. The baseline is that because religion and belief matter to many individuals, they must matter to parliamentarians and parliaments who represent them. Tomorrow, I will share with you in more detail the IPU's work in this area, to which we have dedicated assembly declarations, a report on religion and belief, and just 2 weeks ago, as Mr. Deputy Speaker mentioned, an international parliamentary conference on interfaith dialogue. We acknowledge the great support of the I.A.O. and its members in many of our activities. I am looking forward to the deliberations in the coming days. As the IPU's senior advisor on interfaith dialogue, it will provide me an opportunity to learn from many of you and to share the IPU's institutional approach as a religiously unaffiliated organization, governed by 5 core values of equality, inclusiveness, respect, integrity, and solidarity. In our work, we already have the I.A.O. as a strong ally, and I look forward to identifying further avenues for cooperation in the coming days. I wish you all a successful assembly. Thank you very much.
Now, the greeting address by the Secretary General of the President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, Hadji Milorad Stosic.
Honorable Excellencies, Reverend Fathers, dear colleagues, dear friends, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Maximus Karakopoulos for conveying this 30th General Assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly of Orthodoxy, and to Greek Parliament for hosting this year's assembly. It is an honor for me to speak to you today on behalf of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean on an important issue, the role of interfaith dialogue in promoting peace. The Mediterranean and the Black Sea are The Mediterranean and the Black Sea are today in the grip of escalating violence, conflict and tragedy with a terrible war in Ukraine, while in Middle East cannot find peace. And then in the heart of our region, only 50 miles from Pylos in Greece 2 weeks ago, we witnessed yet one of the worst migratory tragedy in the Mediterranean, victims of human trafficking and transnational organized crime. Not since 1945 has the world seen as much violence and instability as it does today. Many of these violence are linked to intolerance and development of hatred, xenophobia, racism, extreme nationalism, misogyny, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and anti-Christian sentiments are all ills that plague our societies and stand in the way of human fraternity. While all major religions advocate tolerance, acceptance of differences, respect, and peace, our societies are witnessing the manipulation of these religious doctrines in the service of violence and hatred. This hatred is further fueled by the rise of uncontrolled social networks, which are true breeding grounds for misinformation, fake news, disinformation, hate speech, and the normalization of violence. We cannot remain idle in the face of such behaviors. The international community has already taken up this issue, making it the central theme of several high-level meetings. Just recently, the United Nations Security Council called on major religious leaders. The discussions culminated in the unanimous adoption of a resolution urging states to publicly condemn hate speech, racism, and acts of extremism. At the same time, the I.A.O held a parliamentary conference for interfaith dialogue in Marrakesh. The declaration adopted at the end of session highlighted the key role of parliamentarism in peacekeeping and interfaith dialogue and encouraged the development of strong cooperation with religious leaders and communities to build effective solidarity between peoples. At Parliamentary Assembly of Mediterranean, we regularly organize debates and meetings with religious leaders on issues such as their responsibility in preventing violence and radicalization. Dear colleagues and friends, as a parliamentary organization that brings together countries of different faiths and religions, Parliamentary Assembly of Mediterranean strongly condemns intolerance in all its forms and advocates the promotions of intercultural and interfaith dialogue. We parliamentarians have a special role to play in promoting peace, human fraternity, and tolerance. Whatever our religion or culture, we all defend these values and work to make them a concrete reality at home and in our communities. We believe that there are practical solutions to the proliferation of hate speech and religious intolerance. We specifically encourage investment in education systems, as a key element in education young people. Cooperation and dialogue are today more essential than ever. At the dawn of world plagued by insecurity and divided by beliefs, tolerance needs to be our common language. With sincere wishes for the successful work of the Interparliamentary Assembly of Orthodoxy that will held these days with the help of God, I thank you for your attention and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Greetings by the Secretary General of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Black Sea Economic Cooperation, Mr. Asaf Hajiev. Mr. Hajiev will now proceed to the podium.
His Excellency, Deputy Speaker of Hellenic Parliament, Your Holiness, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I would like, on behalf of Parliamentary Assembly of the Black Sea Economic Cooperation, address all of you and using this opportunity to congratulate you with 30th anniversary of the creation of Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. 30 years ago, maybe the same time, it was created Parliamentary Assembly of the Black Sea Economic Cooperation. And together with your assembly, we passed a long way. And as a result of this way, today you have observer status in our organization and vice versa. The Black Sea region, which I am presenting today, plays an important role in world policy because it can be considered as a bridge between Europe and Asia. At the same time, it is intersection of the main world transportation roads like Silk Way from east to west and North Way, sometimes it's called Viking Way, from north to south. But at the same time, the region is very rich in energy resources, where oil and gas from Caspian and Black Sea are delivered to the world market. But the main value of the region, it is not its geographical position. And it is not that the region is rich in energy resources. The main value of the region, this is a people, different nations with different traditions, different culture, and what is a matter important, with different religions. But unfortunately, it's necessary to underline that last years, the region faced with a serious threat. It is conflicts in the region. As a result of conflicts, we have war, and as a result of war, we have refugees. Today in the world, the number of refugees exceeded 100 million people. It means that in the world, among of 80 people, at least one refugee. If we'll come back to Black Sea region, here is among of 40 people, there is at least one refugee. But if we have a look to other Black Sea states like Turkey, where is amount of 20 people, one refugees. But in Azerbaijan, in Georgia, among of 10 people, there is one refugees. And the problem has been solved in a short future, because at least every day we are losing some people, and the problem should be solved in the frame of international law and resolution of United Nations. But this problem, it is not problem of one country. It is not problem of one region. It's problem for all world. And here, the religious values can help, because all religions in the world call people for peace, for cooperation, and for security. The main slogan of our organization of PAPSEC is peace, reconciliation, and cooperation. And this is our future. You know, many years ago, I thought that we live in a huge world. But when my country got independence in 1991, I saw that the world is not huge. We live in a small world, because the borders have been opened and we can pay visit to any countries. But in the end of 20th century, when information technology came into our life, I saw that the world is not huge, not small. We live in microscopic world. And to bring peace, reconciliation, prosperity, and cooperation, it's our debt. At least it is our debt in front of young generation. I wish to all country, to all of you, peace, reconciliation, and cooperation. Thank you.
Η κυρία
Madam
Πατρίτσια
Patricia Taranto will read out the greeting message from Focolare Movement. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. It's a great pleasure being with you tonight. As you heard, I will read out the message from our President, Madam Margaret Karan. Dear Maximos Harakopoulos, General Secretary, advisors, Mr. Konstantinos Migdalis and Alexander Fomenko, honorable organizers, and members of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, I sincerely thank you for the invitation extended to me to participate in the 30th Assembly of this prestigious organization. Your invitation is a great honor for me and for the Focolare movement. This 30th gathering is a major landmark and aims at the benefit of a society that will be more just and fraternal. I regret not being able to attend in person due to prior commitments, but it is with great joy that I am entrusting Dr. Patricia Taranto, responsible for the Focolare movement in Greece, with bringing this message of mine, through which I intend to express my deep admiration and the unity of purpose with your esteemed organization. There is lively collaboration between the I.A.O. and the Focolare movement, and this partnership is being realized in the common effort underway with the Centro Uno and the Movement for Unity in Politics in preparation for the 2025 celebrations. This relationship is valuable and enriching because it allows us to work together to promote, even in the political arena, those Christian values that are profoundly human. And then the fact that we are working together to achieve our common goal of Easter together in 2025 makes us feel that we are one people of God, and allows us to already bear witness to the unity of Christians in the diverse wealth of the churches. We wanted to contribute so that the Christians become increasingly aware of the great significance of celebrating Easter on the same day, so that that Jesus' prayer to the Father, that all may be one, can be fulfilled. The experience of working together to evangelically transform the world makes our actions more effective, because the presence of the Holy Spirit that makes all things new is stronger. The present time is facing many challenges. We have the climatic change that requires a new way of life, migration of peoples, to which we have not yet given an answer worthy of the gospel. And we also have the tragic problem of so many bloody open conflicts, even conflicts and wars between sister nations. Numerous influential church leaders, such as His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew and His Holiness Pope Francis, but also many others, are calling us to a life of consistency between Christian ideals and our actions in society. May the common ideals which animate us instill in each one a renewed courage to do our part so that the culture of fraternity may spread and weapons may be silenced. May our journey together facilitate dialogue and understanding among peoples in order to have a lasting peace throughout the world and in all religions and all cultures. We thank God and you for these 30 years of action, and I assure you of my prayers and wish an even more fruitful future for the glory of God and for the good of humanity. Margaret Karam, President.
Reaching the end of this ceremony, the official ceremony, I want to ask Dr. Maximus Charakopoulos, I.A.O. Secretary General, to come to the podium for his speech. Your Eminence, representative of His All Holiness, Patriarch of Bartholomew, representative of the Archbishop Ieronymos of the Athens and Greece Church, Eminence of Zambia, representative of His Beatitude Patriarch of Alexandria and all Africa, representative Very Reverend Abbot of Simonos Petras in Athos, dear colleagues from the parliaments, Vice Regional Governor of Chalkidiki, Mayor of Sithonia, representative of the IPU President, representative of PAM, Secretary, General Secretary of the PAPSEC, Chief of the Police, advisors of the I.A.O, friends. Let me welcome you once again to the anniversary General Assembly of the I.A.O today. We are here in Chalkidiki, in Macedonia, where 30 years ago the founding stone was laid for the materialization of a fantastic vision that seemed to be unthinkable then. It was about the political unity of the Orthodox world as part and parcel of the single European space. It was the time where walls of the Cold War were coming down and ideologies were collapsing. Historical facts allowed to bring to the fore the different identities of the peoples of the Balkans, Central and Eastern Europe, where the preponderant element is the religious one. Something that proved the resistance, stamina of the religious feeling despite repression by the state mechanisms and centers of ideological manipulation. In those days, sensitive political people of that period, like Vasilis Korachais, Stelios Papathemelis, perceived the needs that then emerged. The plan was promoted and it was accepted by an overwhelming majority, and in this country the Parliament of Greece, a country that is mainly Orthodox. And the same welcome happened in also other parliaments where there were Orthodox populations. Back then, in June 1993 in Ormilia, we seemed to find again the thread that seemed to have been cut off for a time. The acceptance was very wide. The then European Economic Community of Jacques Delors, now EU, and the Vice President of the European Parliament, Madame Nicole Fontaine, the space, the place of meeting couldn't have been more ideal. Here in Chalkidiki, next to Ionoros, the Garden of Virgin Mother, the living continuation of Byzantium, and a space of ideological proximity of all Orthodox peoples, next to Thessaloniki, the capital of Macedonia, the co-reigning city of Byzantium, the city of Greek brothers Cyril and Methodius, and in the place where one of the greatest philosophers of all times, Aristotle, had been born, symbolizing not only European thought but also referring to the pillar of ancient Greek letters that, together with the Roman law and Christian tradition, laid the foundations of what we call European civilization. So today comes to confirm the visions and hopes, the anguish and efforts of all those who worked for the I.A.O. And I want to take you through some of the top highlights of our 30-year course. In this flashback, historical flashback, the 30-year institutional life and action of the I.A.O. was neither given nor easy. It, on the contrary, it demanded long-term efforts for an adjustment to the constantly changing international environment, and in order to absorb all the shocks coming from consecutive international crises. It took a lot of work in order for this body to become part of the conscience of the international parliamentary reality. It took a lot of perseverance in order for this body to become part of the agenda of the religious bodies and churches. And what is more, it took a long time in order for it to formulate a political parliamentary discourse which is modern and based on the principles of the Orthodox tradition. It took a long time and it took a lot of patience in order for the I.A.O. to promote the idea of interparliamentary bodies as part of the democratic parliamentary diplomacy and bring forth the Orthodox civilization and to contribute in a decisive manner to the interparliamentary dialogue, like the Dialogue for the Future of Europe and the Parliamentary Conference of IPU for the dialogue between religions. There are three phases to the history of the I.A.O. Let's call the first one the infant period of the I.A.O., starting in 1993 when the organization was founded. The fall of the socialist bloc after the dissolution of the USSR and Yugoslavia led to an emergence of new states in Eastern Europe that wanted to be immediately recognized as equals by the international community. At the same time, the peoples of these new democracies were looking for a new ideological orientation in order to base on it their future. The Conference of Formilia with the subject of Orthodoxy in the new European reality actually gave birth to the idea of our institution, the intention being to contribute to the adjustment of all these people to a modern European process, not changing their own character, special character, but contributing the elements of their own Orthodox identity. These states, faced with the European Union, is immediately after the signature of Maastricht, which seemed to be facing the peoples of the Eastern Europe as poor and deprived relatives. To that environment, we insisted in bringing the democratic principles of respect for the basic human rights and freedoms by bringing to the surface the very special features of tradition against the flattening, globalizing choices in East and West. At the same time, the I.A.O., during its first phase, developed actions for the protection of the environment, the promotion of education, and the study of the impact of new technologies and bioethics. The second period of the I.A.O., its adolescence, let me call it, was inaugurated in essence in 2001 when the then European Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy that was oriented towards Europe decided to become international. The transformation of our organization into an international organization comes not only from the change of name, but also by the fact that there was wide participation worldwide, Canada, USA, Australia, and some African countries. It was the time that the European Constitution was voted in, which never became official text of the European Union. However, it recognized in some way the contribution of Christianity in the European history. It was in those days that there were successive waves of enlargement of the EU, and there were also political crises in many countries of Eastern Europe, and they led people to move looking for more favorable living conditions in the states of the West. Faced with those challenges, the I.A.O. really struggled and was supported in this by the Church, with whom the I.A.O. developed relations of close and harmonious cooperation. At the same time, the I.A.O. attempted to create some communication channels with the Muslims in order to have mutual understanding and cooperation in favor of peace. And it was the first time that we have an approach between us and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation for the monography of a cooperation protocol, which however failed because of the implication of Turkey. However, we were still trying indefatigably to bring about such a cooperation. At the same time, the I.A.O. intensifies its relationships with the Orthodox world and the ancient patriarchates of the wider area of Middle East and the African world and the missions, the Orthodox missionaries there. The third phase of the I.A.O. is that of its adulthood, because it took place in an environment of developments and crises worldwide, and our organization had to respond directly to those, to adjust its actions in order to survive and continue to represent and promote the interests of the Orthodox people. Such facts was the precarious living of Christians in the Middle East, the destruction and desecration of Christian monuments in a series of areas, the effort to de-Christianize the modern European identity, an intense situation in many different places apart from the Middle East, such as the Nagorno-Karabakh, the Kosovo and the African continent, and of course, last and most important is the war in Ukraine between two Orthodox peoples. And at the same time, we need to face consequences from the serious intra-church differences that broke out, especially after the Great and Holy Synod of the Orthodox in 2016 in Crete. The I.A.O. tried, with respect to its limits, to work independently from these differences between churches in the field that is its own, always with the idea of promoting our common values. Among the issues that I mentioned, I would like to start with the civil war in Syria in the framework of the Arab Spring that further aggravated the situation of the Christians in the cradle of Christianity itself. Then Iraq and Syria, where the Christians were hunted down by the powers, the forces of the Islamic State, and led to flee the country. Christianity was at jeopardy and is still in danger of disappearing altogether from the greatest part of the Middle East. And there was a genocide that started in the beginning of the 20th century in Middle East and led by the Turkish nationalism. We could not remain silent facing this crime. We made our voice be heard. We worked together with other dogmas and doctrines and Muslims. As far as the protection of Christian monuments is concerned, we raised the issue for occupied Cyprus, the occupied areas of Syria, Kosovo, Nagorno-Karabakh, and of course Turkey. The head of the spear of our action is, of course, the campaign that we have started against the arbitrary and inadmissible energy of the Turkish leadership in the framework of the neo-Ottoman ideology to convert Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, this ecumenical symbol of Orthodoxy, into a mosque. We feel proud because it was thanks to our actions that this issue remains still in actuality. It is a monument still protected by UNESCO and all human ideals, as you all know, in the framework of this of this action, we went on to publish a volume in collaboration with the Capodistrian University of Athens and a multinational team of scientists, in which we present 37 emblematic churches dedicated to the holy wisdom of God and are everywhere in the world, from the British coast to the depths of China. This volume has been translated into 12 languages and has been presented in many European capitals and metropolises, and has been given to the Ecumenical Patriarch of Bartholomew and Pope Francis, and to other great personalities of the academic society. We commit ourselves to continuing this struggle, convinced that we must not allow this tort to prevail over the right. As far as Christian tradition in Europe, the I.A.O. has undertaken some initiatives, especially in the framework of the Dialogue for the Future of Europe, in collaboration with other groups, agencies, institutions. We insist and persist in the need to bring forth the Christian profile of the European civilization as one of its basic components, because it was this Christian profile that shaped the modern European people, and it is also one of the elements of unity of Europe. Further, we denounce practices that aim at curtailing the religious freedoms and the use of a very comprehensive neutral language. Instead of saying Merry Christmas, now they want to start saying have a pleasant winter holiday. We try to explain to the European institutions that this type of behavior further accentuates Euroscepticism and increases the trends and tendencies to get away from it. As to the central problem of the I.A.O., which is the war of the Ukraine, our position was from the outset very clear-cut. We asked for the ceasing of war, the return to the table of negotiations, and a solution to be found based on the principles of territorial integrity and respect of the frontiers and humanitarian principles. However, after a year and a half from the onset of this bloody war, we have not been heard. The voices of peace and conciliation are still weak. It is still the weapons that are being heard, with resulting into more disaster, more victims, and more refugees. We hope that this war will come to an end thanks to the Orthodox principles and values that are those of peace and mutual understandings. Ladies and gentlemen, during these 30 years, the I.A.O. has proven that despite the grave and serious difficulties, it is an institution that has stamina and resilience and adaptivity, and this is why it remains united and is enlarged with new members. At the same time, we are becoming an organization of an international prestige, and because we have the principle of bringing about a world of higher spiritual values and a world of peace and cooperation. Together with faith in the principles of democracy and values of orthodoxy, we can bring the I.A.O. even higher. Thank you. I did not thank the Dean of the Focolari movement, the director of the Orthodox Academy of Crete, and if I have omitted any other, please forgive me and please feel welcome here at this historical moment in the history of our organization.
So the Secretary General and the members of the International Secretariat for the I.A.O. are kindly requested to proceed forward to award the commemorative plates to first Mr. Athanasios Bouras, Vice Speaker of the Greek Parliament. His Eminence Metropolitan of Arkalοχώρη, Andrew, is kindly requested to proceed forward to receive his souvenir. It's a replica of the Holy Sepulcher icon made by the Monastery of Simonos, Petras. His Eminence Metropolitan of Cassandra, His Eminence Metropolitan of Zambia, John, Most Reverend Abbot of the Monastery of Simonos, Petras, Archimandrite Elissaios, Deputy Regional Governor for Chalkidiki, Mrs. Zographou, Mayor of Siphonia, Mr. Kyparissis Temblas, Representative of the Secretary General for the World Council of Churches, Dean of the School of Theology, Professor Stamoulis, Representative of the President of the IPU, Representative of the Parliamentary Assembly for the Mediterranean, PAM, Secretary General of PABSEC, Mr. Asaf Hadziev. Madam Margaret Karam, representing the Focolare movement.